In the shadows where truth and tales intertwine, we find the thrilling, the chilling, the downright spine-tingling. From the paranormal to the peculiar, every echo has a story. Dare to delve into the unexpected, the unexplained? Brace yourself, for you're about to embark on a journey where fear meets fascination. Stay tuned if you dare, for stories that will make your heart race and your mind ponder. Welcome to the realm of the eerie, the realm of the unknown. And remember, like and subscribe, if you dare. Deep within the confines of a desolate forest, a group of friends embarked on a camping trip. Their merriment echoed through the thick foliage, a stark contrast to the chilling silence that would soon envelop them. They set up their tents under the watchful gaze of gnarled trees, their laughter a fleeting veil of normality against the foreboding darkness. As the sun surrendered to twilight, the forest transformed. The hooting of distant owls and the rustling of unseen creatures became the unsettling soundtrack to their evening. The friends huddled around the campfire, its flickering glow casting long, ominous shadows. The crackling embers mirrored the glint of unease in their eyes as an eerie stillness fell over the forest. The air turned heavy, tainted with a foul stench that clung to their senses. An unnatural fog weaved its way through the trees, its ghostly tendrils reaching out to them. As they exchanged anxious glances, they felt the creeping dread that had been lurking in the shadows. An unnatural stillness settled over the forest, a harbinger of the terror to come. A foul stench lingered in the air and an eerie fog slithered through the trees. The woods, once vibrant and teeming with life, morphed into a desolate landscape of fear and uncertainty. The once comforting crackle of the campfire now served as a stark reminder of their isolation, amplifying the chilling stillness that had settled over the forest. Their eyes, wide with trepidation, began to discern strange markings on the nearby trees. Cryptic symbols etched into the bark, pulsating with an otherworldly energy. The symbols seemed to resonate with the primal fear that gripped their hearts, as if each marking was a foreboding prophecy of the terror to come. The friends exchanged uneasy glances, their laughter now replaced by an oppressive silence. Each marking seemed to tell a story, a tale of ancient evil that had once claimed these woods as its hunting grounds. The symbols, twisted and obscure, seemed to beckon them, drawing them deeper into the heart of the forest's malevolence. Suddenly, a guttural growl echoed through the woods, freezing their blood. The sound was primal, a beastly call that seemed to originate from the very bowels of the forest. The growl resonated with the markings, amplifying their dread. The friends clung to each other, their faces pale in the flickering firelight. The forest seemed to close in around them, the shadows growing longer and more menacing. The once familiar shapes of the trees now appeared grotesque, their branches reaching out like gnarled hands, the markings on their bark glowing ominously in the dim light. Each growl, each gust of wind seemed to whisper a dire warning. The friends, huddled together in the fading firelight, could no longer deny the growing sense of dread. Something was stirring in the forest, something ancient and malevolent. Then a sudden movement caught their collective gaze. From the inky depths of the trees emerged a figure, shrouded in tattered rags, its face obscured by shadows. The friends recoiled in horror, their worst fears confirmed. They were not alone in these woods. The malevolent force they had feared was now a terrifying reality. They were in its domain, and it was hungry. The figure spoke in a guttural language, a dark incantation that seemed to summon the very essence of evil. The words hung in the air like a thick fog, wrapping themselves around the terrified group of friends. The forest seemed to recoil at the sound, the trees shivering in the cold night air. The figure's voice was like a chorus of whispers, a symphony of fear that echoed through the dense foliage. As the figure moved closer, the friends could make out its twisted features. Its limbs were bent at unnatural angles, and its body seemed to defy the laws of physics. It was as if the figure was part of the forest itself, a creature born from the twisted branches and eerie fog. The friends could do nothing but watch in paralyzed horror as the figure approached. The firelight flickered against its grotesque form, casting long, monstrous shadows on the ground. Panic set in, their hearts pounding like a drum against their ribs. They could feel the figure's malevolent gaze on them, its eyes glowing with a sinister light. The figure raised one of its twisted arms, pointing at the group. Its voice dropped to a haunting whisper, the words curling around them like smoke. The friends could feel a chill run down their spines, a sense of impending doom settling in their hearts. "The forest has chosen you," it hissed, its voice echoing in the eerie silence. "You are the sacrifice!" The friends looked at each other in terror, their faces pale in the firelight. They could feel the figure's words seeping into their minds, a horrifying prophecy of their fate. They were trapped, their screams of fear swallowed by the forest. The figure's grotesque smile spread across its twisted face, its glowing eyes filled with anticipation. The friends could see their reflection in its gaze, their terror mirrored back at them. Their fate was sealed, their futures tied to the heart of the cursed forest. With a haunting whisper, it revealed the gruesome fate that awaited them. The figure's words echoed through the night, a chilling reminder of the malevolent force that lurked in the heart of the forest. One by one, the friends succumbed to the darkness. It was a transformation as dreadful as it was swift. Each heartbeat echoed with a terrifying rhythm, a macabre symphony of change. Their bodies, once warm and vibrant, now became grotesque marionettes to the malevolent force. Their limbs twisted and contorted in ways that defied the laws of nature, each movement a testament to their gruesome metamorphosis. Bones snapped in a chilling symphony of horror, echoing through the silent woods like a dirge for the damned. Flesh tore as if subjected to an unseen, savage force, each tear a painful reminder of their humanity slipping away. Their screams formed a chilling chorus that echoed through the forest, a testament to their torment. The once joyous laughter of the friends turned into guttural cries, each note a haunting melody of despair and terror. The forest seemed to come alive, feeding on their fear, growing darker and more ominous with each passing moment. The figure, shrouded in tattered rags, stood amidst the chaos, absorbing the essence of their fear. Each tortured soul it claimed seemed to strengthen it, the dread emanating from it growing more palpable. It reveled in their terror, drawing power from their despair. Its eyes, glowing with a malevolent light, bore witness to the horrific transformation, a silent audience to the macabre spectacle. The forest, once a sanctuary of natural beauty, now became a theater of the grotesque. The twisted symbols on the trees pulsed with an otherworldly energy, as if they were the heartbeat of the forest itself. The woods seemed to breathe in their fear, growing darker and more foreboding with each passing moment. A haunting whisper slithered through the trees, the figure revealing the gruesome fate that awaited them. The guttural sounds of a ritualistic sacrifice replaced the once joyous laughter of the friends. Their transformation was complete, their humanity lost to the darkness. They had become a part of the malevolent force that now ruled the forest, their souls forever trapped in its haunting embrace. As dawn broke, the malevolent force retreated, leaving behind a silent, desolate forest. The first rays of sunlight timidly peeked over the horizon, revealing a landscape forever altered by the night's horrifying events. The once vibrant greenery now bore a sickly hue, its innocence lost to the terror that had unfolded. The air hung heavy with an oppressive silence, the forest's usual morning chorus eerily absent. The twisted symbols that adorned the trees glowed faintly in the soft morning light. They pulsed with a residual energy, an echo of the unspeakable horror that had been unleashed. These markings, once indecipherable to the friends, now stood as a grim testament to their fate. Each warped line and curve seemed to whisper a tale of malevolence, a chilling narrative etched into the bark. The forest, tainted by the gruesome events, now held an ominous aura. It was as if the very trees bore witness to the night's atrocities, their whispers carrying tales of the terror that had unfolded. Every rustle of leaves, every creak of a branch, seemed to echo with the friends' final agonizing screams. The campsite was a chilling tableau of the previous night's horrors. The once crackling fire was now a pile of cold ashes. The tents stood empty and forlorn, a grim monument to the friends' ill-fated journey. The remnants of their laughter, their camaraderie, were drowned by the haunting silence that pervaded the forest. In the heart of the woods, the friends were no more. Their bodies may have fallen, but their souls remained, trapped in the haunting embrace of the forest. They had become unwilling guests in this macabre theater, their fear forever imprinted on the forest memory. The once innocent camping trip had transformed into a chilling tale of horror, the friends' laughter replaced by their echoing screams. Their fate was a chilling reminder of the forest's malevolent nature, a warning to those who dared to tread into its heart. The friends, now lost souls trapped in the haunting embrace of the forest, became a part of the malevolent energy, forever hungry for the fear of those who dared to tread into the heart of the cursed woods. The city's toxic odor was never for me. I found peace in the fresh air of the forest, serving as a ranger with the Park Service. The bustling city life and small cubicle desks were a far cry from my ideal way of life. I needed to be one with nature, to feel the earth beneath my feet and the fresh air filling my lungs. So I traded in my suit and tie for a ranger's uniform and never looked back. Just a few weeks into my new post, I found myself stationed in the watchtower, the heart of the forest. It was my responsibility to keep a vigilant eye on this vast expanse of wilderness. Fires, trespassers, the occasional lost hiker, these were the disturbances that kept me on my toes. And then, there were the weekend warriors, the young ones who'd sneak into the woods to drink and party under the moonlight. 2 to 3 calls a night on the weekends, and 1 during the week. That was the norm. And I didn't mind it much. It gave me a chance to stretch my legs and interact with some folks, albeit under less than ideal circumstances. But then there was this one Friday night. The moon was full, casting a silvery glow over the forest. It was a sight to behold, serene yet alive as I watched from my perch in the watchtower. The night was progressing as any other, with the occasional flicker of a fire in the distance, signaling another band of merrymakers. But suddenly, the night took a turn. The air turned freezing cold, sending a cold shiver down my spine. An odd noise echoed around me, a low hum that seemed to come from the forest itself. I brushed it off as the wind, or maybe an animal. But there was something about that noise, something unsettling. It was then I realized this was no ordinary Friday night. Through the crisp forest sky, a fire caught my eye in the distance. A beacon of life and revelry amidst the tranquil wilderness. I called it in, my duty as the guardian of these woods, and set off to investigate. As I approached, the sounds of laughter and music danced through the night, a symphony of youthful exuberance. It was the usual suspects, young kids sneaking into the woods for a clandestine party under the stars. I've had to deal with this kind of thing more times than I can count. It's a typical Friday night occurrence around here. "Time to head home, folks," I told them, my voice firm but not unkind. They groaned and grumbled, but eventually packed up their things and left, leaving me alone with the dying embers of their fire. I knew I'd likely see them again later, but for now, the forest was quiet. As I made my way back to the watchtower, something felt off. An unsettling chill ran down my spine, and I found myself glancing over my shoulder, feeling as though a pair of unseen eyes were watching me. The once comforting solitude of the forest suddenly felt oppressive, the silence deafening. The night air turned icy, a stark contrast to the earlier warmth. It was as if the forest itself was changing, reacting to something unseen. An odd noise echoed through the trees, not quite a howl, not quite a whisper. It was a sound I'd never heard before, one that sent a shiver of unease racing through me. I quickened my pace, the comforting light of the watchtower beckoning me from afar. I've been alone in the woods many times, but never before had I felt such a sense of dread. It was as though the forest had transformed into a labyrinth of shadows, each one hiding a potential threat. I shook off the feeling, attributing it to the late hour and my overactive imagination. But still, that sense of unease lingered, a cold knot in the pit of my stomach. The night air turned freezing cold, and I rushed back to my post. Around 1 a.m., another fire beckoned from the forest. The ever-vigilant sentinel of the wilderness, my duty called me once again into the heart of the dark woods. An eerie sensation washed over me as I left the safety of my watchtower, as if unseen eyes were following my every step. The normal symphony of night creatures was replaced with a deafening silence. Still, I pressed onward, my footsteps crunching the fallen leaves beneath. As I neared the fire, I found an unsettling scene. No laughter, no music, no signs of merrymaking youth. Instead, a chaotic mess of abandoned beer cans and scattered belongings. It was as if the partygoers had vanished into thin air. I muttered to myself, "These damn kids, why don't they clear up after themselves?" Suddenly, I felt a presence behind me. I turned around and found a girl standing there, her clothes stained with blood. The sight of her pale, terrified face sent a chill down my spine. She was shivering, speechless, her eyes wide with terror. I reached out and asked, "Are you okay? What happened?" She fell into my arms, sobbing uncontrollably. Her words came out in a terrified whisper. "It's here. It killed everyone. Get me out of here." Without wasting a second, I grabbed the girl and we hurried back toward my post. That's when it started. Whispers. Soft, unintelligible whispers that seemed to echo from every direction. The girl froze. Her body stiffened in my arms. "They're here. They found me," she whimpered, her voice barely above a whisper. The whispers grew louder, more insistent, like a chilling wind that cuts through the bones. I looked around, searching for the source of the voices, but all I saw were the shadowy figures of trees. Fear gripped me, but I knew I couldn't let it paralyze me. I had to get us out of there. I tightened my grip on the girl and quickened my pace, the whispers echoing around us, chasing us through the forest. I grabbed the girl, and we hurried towards my post. Whispers echoed throughout the forest, and the girl in fear said, "They're here, they found me." Shadows with bright red eyes moved around the forest, chasing us. The whispers were growing louder, a cacophony of voices, eerie and unintelligible, a chorus of unseen horrors lurking in the dark. The whispers seemed to be coming from everywhere, echoing off the trees, reverberating through the undergrowth, amplified by the inky darkness of the night. It was as if the forest itself was alive, its every leaf and branch whispering secrets filled with dread. My heart pounded like a drum in my chest, the rhythm of fear. The girl clung to me, her body limp with terror. I could feel her shivering against me, her breath ragged and uneven. I tightened my grip on her, urging her on, but she was paralyzed with fear. I could hear the whispers getting louder, closer, as if the shadows were gaining on us. The forest seemed to stretch on forever, a never-ending maze of trees and darkness. But I knew we couldn't stop, couldn't let whatever was chasing us catch up. I had to protect this girl, had to get us both out of this nightmare. So I took a deep breath, gathered all my strength, and ran. I ran like I've never run before, my legs pumping, my lungs screaming for air. The girl was a dead weight in my arms, but I didn't let go. I couldn't. The whispers were right behind us now, a relentless pursuit of shadows and voices. I could almost feel their icy touch, their unseen claws reaching out for us. But I refused to look back, refused to let the terror slow me down. I kept my eyes on the watchtower, a beacon of safety in the midst of the dark forest. We can make it. Just a little more, I told myself, pushing my body to its limits. And then finally, we broke through the tree line, the watchtower looming in front of us. I didn't stop running until we were inside, the door slamming shut behind us. I locked it, my hands shaking, my breath coming in gasps. We finally made it through the clearing and into the light, rushing inside the watchtower and locking the doors. But the terror wasn't over, it was only just beginning. The pounding on the door went on for 20 minutes before complete silence. The chilling stillness of the night wrapped around us like a shroud. The only sound was our labored breathing and the girl's whimpering sobs. I could feel her trembling against me, her body racked with terror and shock. The watchtower had become our sanctuary, a beacon of safety in the midst of this unimaginable horror. I tried to comfort her, my voice barely a whisper against the deafening quiet. "Hey, it's okay. We're safe here." But the words felt hollow even to me. How could I promise safety when I didn't understand what we were hiding from? The girl looked up at me then, her eyes wide and filled with dread. "We shouldn't have done it," she murmured, her voice barely audible. "I told them not to do it, but they didn't listen." I frowned, confusion seeping into my fear. "Done what?" I asked, my heart pounding against my chest with a rhythm that echoed the pounding on the door. She swallowed hard, her gaze dropping to her bloodied hands. "My friends, we called on the spirits," she stuttered out. "We used a Ouija board." The words hung in the air between us, heavy and ominous. I felt a chill run down my spine, a sense of foreboding that gripped me with an icy hold. I wasn't a believer in the supernatural, but the terror in her voice, the shadows with bright red eyes, the whispers echoing through the forest. It was all too real, too tangible to be dismissed as mere imagination. I held her tighter, the grim reality of our situation sinking in. We were trapped in a watchtower, surrounded by an unknown terror birthed from a game gone horribly wrong. The city's toxic odor suddenly seemed less menacing compared to the deadly silence of the forest. I wasn't a believer, but after that night I hoped that was the last time I would ever encounter those spirits. Deep in the heart of the ancient woods, a group of friends embark on a camping trip. This is no ordinary forest, but a place where shadows dance a macabre ballet with the moonlight and the rustle of leaves whisper untold secrets. The friends, full of youthful bravado, pitch their tents beneath the towering trees, oblivious to the lurking darkness that lays claim to these woods. As twilight loses its battle to the encroaching night, their campfire flickers defiantly, casting long, monstrous shadows that play tricks on the mind. The friends huddle together, their faces illuminated by the capricious flames. They exchange stories, their laughter punctuating the silence of the forest, a futile attempt to shake off the eerie feeling that has draped over the woods like a shroud. Suddenly, a distant howl slices through their mirth, its echo reverberating off the ancient trees, sending shivers down their spines. They dismiss it as a mere wolf, their laughter a little more forced, a little less genuine. But as the night matures, the woods seem to awaken, unseen eyes observing their every move, the forest alive with an uncanny intent. As the friends delve deeper into their ghost stories, they become aware of strange occurrences. A soft crunch of leaves behind them, a fleeting glimpse of shadowy figures between the trees, the sudden chill that raises goosebumps on their skin. They laugh it off, attributing it to their imagination, fueled by the ghost stories and the ominous darkness. But as the campfire dwindles, so does their courage. The once inviting woods now seem foreboding, an impenetrable labyrinth of terror. The air grows thick with an otherworldly presence, a rising sense of dread seeping into their bones. And then abruptly the forest falls silent. No rustling leaves, no nocturnal animals scurrying about. An uneasy calm blankets the woods, the friends exchanging anxious glances, the realization dawning that something is very wrong. And just as they contemplate abandoning their campsite, a blood-curdling scream pierces the silence, a chilling prelude to the horrors that await them. A distant howl echoed through the trees, sending shivers down their spines. One by one, the friends began to notice strange occurrences. A faint rustling of leaves, too rhythmic to be wind. Shadows played tricks on their eyes, suggesting movement where there should be none. The woods, their chosen sanctuary for the weekend, began to feel more like a prison. They laughed it off, attributing these oddities to the chill of the night and the ghost stories they had been sharing. But deep down, a seed of fear had been planted. As the fire danced its last dance, their laughter grew quieter. The woods around them seemed to close in, as if the trees were inching closer, crowding them, watching them. The air grew thick with an unspoken dread, a sense of anticipation that hung heavy like a storm cloud ready to burst. The distant hoot of an owl, usually a comforting country sound, now seemed fraught with warning. The friends huddled closer, their banter replaced by uneasy silence. The forest was speaking to them, but its language was one of fear. Then came the whispers, soft, barely audible murmurs that slipped in and out of the wind. They couldn't make out the words, but the tone was unmistakable. It was a warning, a plea, a threat. It was the voice of the forest, and it was filled with a terror they couldn't comprehend. Their hearts pounded in their chests as they strained to decipher the whispers. The darkness around them seemed to ripple, to move with a life of its own. The firelight flickered, casting eerie shadows that danced and twisted, taking on grotesque forms. They clung to each other, their laughter long forgotten, replaced by a mounting horror that threatened to consume them. Just as they were about to dismiss it as the product of their overactive imaginations, a scream cut through the silence. It was a sound of pure terror, raw and primal. It echoed through the trees, bouncing off the trunks and filling the air with its chilling resonance. A blood-curdling scream pierced the stillness, confirming their worst fears. They were not alone in these woods. Panic seized them as they scrambled to their feet. The crackling embers of the dying fire cast long, eerie shadows as the friends bolted into the darkness. The once welcoming woods now felt like a hostile, alien world, filled with unseen terrors that lurked in every shadow. Their hearts pounded in their chests like frantic drumbeats, echoing the primal fear that coursed through their veins. The chilling howls grew louder, closer, a haunting symphony of terror that seemed to reverberate from every direction. They ran blindly, their desperate flight guided only by the pale glow of the moon filtering through the dense canopy of leaves. Branches clawed at their faces, and roots threatened to trip their frantic steps, but terror lent them a speed they didn't know they possessed. The forest seemed to come alive around them, the very trees seeming to twist and contort in their path, as if trying to trap them within the labyrinthine woods. Every rustle, every snap of a twig amplified their fear, fueling their desperate flight from the unseen entity that pursued them. Their breaths came in ragged gasps, their lungs burning with the strain of their flight. But they dared not slow, dared not look back, for the fear of what chased them was far greater than the exhaustion that gnawed at their limbs. The haunting echoes of their pursuer grew louder, the malevolent hisses and growls almost at their heels. The friends could feel the chilling presence closing in, its icy touch trailing down their spines. Just when they thought they couldn't run any further, when their legs threatened to buckle under the strain, a faint silhouette loomed ahead. Squinting through their fear-blurred vision, they recognized the outline of a cabin, its dilapidated form a beacon of hope amidst their terror. Exhausted and terrified, they stumbled towards the refuge, their relief outweighing the dread that gnawed at their minds. As they reached the ancient, dilapidated cabin, they hesitated for a moment, glancing back at the darkness that had chased them before pushing the creaking door open. The chase was over, but their ordeal was far from done. Inside, the air was thick with a suffocating stillness. As they ventured further into the heart of the cabin, their steps echoed ominously, each creak of the wooden floorboards a chilling reminder of the cabin's age and its secrets waiting to be unearthed. Dusty, time-worn trinkets littered the place, each one a silent testament to the lives once lived within these walls. As they explored, they discovered faded photographs, their subjects smiling blissfully, oblivious to the dark fate that would befall them. The images painted a haunting picture of a family long lost to time, a family whose legacy was now entwined with the cabin and the ancient woods surrounding it. The friends felt a chill crawl up their spines as they delved deeper into the cabin's past. Whispers of a curse began to seep into their minds, a curse born out of vengeance and sorrow, binding the spirit of a wronged woman to the cabin and the woods. The air grew colder, the stillness more oppressive. The friends realized they were not alone. The spirit, forever trapped within the confines of the cabin, sensed their presence. Angered by their intrusion, the spirit began to manifest its malevolence. The walls seemed to close in on them, the air heavy with the spirit's wrath. Suddenly, the once lifeless cabin came alive with spectral activity. The spirit, no longer content with lurking in the shadows, began to reveal herself. Ghostly apparitions emerged from the darkness, their ethereal forms a terrifying spectacle. The friends could only watch in horror as the vengeful spirit made her presence known. Each apparition was a chilling echo of the cabin's cursed past. The friends found themselves face to face with the very essence of the cabin's curse, a testament to the darkness that had taken root within its walls. The cabin was no longer a refuge. It was a prison, a haunting reminder of their intrusion into the darkness of the woods. The friends could only hope to survive the night, to escape the clutches of the cabin's curse and the vengeful spirit that held them captive. Ghostly apparitions emerged from the shadows, their haunting presence a chilling testament to the cabin's cursed past. In a desperate attempt to break the curse, they uncovered a weathered journal. The pages, yellowed by time, were filled with cryptic symbols and ancient incantations. Their hearts pounded in their chests as they deciphered the text, a recipe for a ritual to appease the vengeful spirit. Their hands trembled as they gathered the required elements from the cabin, each item steeped in a history they could only guess at. They arranged the items in a circle, their breaths hitching as they began the incantation. Their voices rose in unison, the words echoing eerily around the cabin. As they chanted, the air grew thick with tension. The cabin seemed to shudder, the walls creaking ominously. The temperature dropped, their breaths visible in the icy air. An unseen force swirled around them, the energy tangible and electric. They reached the climax of the incantation, their voices echoing with a final, desperate plea. The air in the cabin grew heavy, and an otherworldly howl echoed through the woods. Slowly, the oppressive atmosphere lifted, and the forest returned to an uneasy calm. The friends, their faces pale and eyes wide with terror, emerged from the cabin. The first rays of dawn peeked through the canopy of the ancient woods, casting long shadows that danced with the echo of the night's horrors. Their laughter, once vibrant and full of life, was now replaced by a silence that spoke volumes of the terror they had encountered. Each step they took away from the cabin was heavy, a testament to the weight of the experience that had changed them forever. As they left the heart of the woods behind, they couldn't help but glance back. The towering trees, once a symbol of nature's majesty, now stood as silent sentinels guarding the dark secrets of the forest. Even as they walked away, they knew they were leaving a part of themselves behind. The darkness that lurked within its depths would forever haunt their memories, a chilling reminder of the horror that unfolded. Once upon a time, in a dense and ominous forest, a group of adventurous Boy Scouts embarked on a camping trip. They plunged into the heart of the woodland, their courage and youthful curiosity leading them deeper with every step. The forest, shrouded in an eerie silence, swallowed their jovial chatter, replacing it with a symphony of crickets and distant hoots of owls. The darkness was pervasive, a velvety blanket that clung to every tree and shrub, hiding the forest's true face. Their flashlights pierced through this obscurity, creating a path of light that seemed to disappear into the infinite shadows. It was as if the forest was a living, breathing entity, observing the newcomers with a mix of curiosity and disdain. As night fell, the forest transformed. The trees, once innocently swaying in the wind, now towered ominously, their branches reaching out like skeletal hands in the dark. A chilling mist rolled in, weaving through the undergrowth and wrapping around the trunks, casting ghostly shadows that danced and swirled in the dim light. Oblivious to the ancient secrets held within the heart of the forest, the scouts set up their camp. The crackling fire lent a comforting warmth to the chilling night, its flickering flames casting a dim, dancing light over their faces. Their laughter echoed through the trees, a beacon of humanity in the face of the unknown. As they huddled around the campfire, they shared stories, their voices barely above a whisper, as if they were afraid to disturb the slumbering woodland. The tales ranged from the heroic to the hilariously absurd, filling the air with their youthful exuberance. Yet, as they reveled in their camaraderie, they failed to notice the growing unease that hung in the air. The forest, once a backdrop to their adventure, was now a character in its own right, its mood shifting with the passing hours. Little did they know that their mirthful tales had awakened something malevolent, something that had slumbered for centuries. One by one, strange occurrences began to unfold. The silence of the forest was shattered by mysterious whispers that seemed to echo through the ancient trees. These weren't just the whispers of the wind, but voices, spectral and haunting, that carried tales of the forest's dark past. The words were indistinguishable, but the tone was unmistakable. A warning, a threat, a chilling promise of what was yet to come. The scouts, once full of laughter and bravado, now stood huddled together, their faces pale in the dim firelight. The camaraderie had been replaced by an icy fear that gripped their hearts. They felt watched, stalked, hunted. Every rustle of leaves, every snap of a twig, was a predator lurking in the shadows. The forest that had once been an exciting adventure now felt like a prison. The tall, shadowy trees loomed ominously overhead, their branches intertwining to form a cage that seemed to close tighter with each passing moment. The darkness was no longer just an absence of light, but a palpable entity that fed on their fear, growing stronger, more menacing. The boys, led by their fearless leader, huddled closer to the dying fire, their only source of light and warmth in the cold, unforgiving night. But the fire, much like their courage, was dwindling, the embers glowing weakly against the oppressive darkness. Their leader, a man of strength and bravery, looked out into the inky blackness, his eyes searching for a way out, a path to safety. But all he saw were the watchful eyes of the unseen watchers, glowing ominously in the dark. His heart pounded in his chest as a cold realization dawned on him. They were not alone in this forest. Their leader, though valiant, couldn't shake the feeling that they were being hunted by something ancient and otherworldly, something that had been awakened by their arrival, something that didn't take kindly to intruders. The forest was alive and it was watching. As the fog lifted, the scouts discovered an ancient burial ground hidden deep within the forest. The sight that met their eyes was one of solemn silence and forgotten despair. The burial ground, shrouded in the misty morning light, was a chilling tableau of history and death. Crumbling tombstones jutted out from the earth, and unearthed graves revealed the remnants of a past best left undisturbed. The scouts stared in wide-eyed terror at the spectral landscape. The burial ground was a stark reminder of the forest's tragic past. It was a place where the line between the living and the dead was blurred, a place where the echoes of the forgotten were almost palpable. The leader, a man of courage and wisdom, felt a chill creep up his spine. He could sense the restless spirits that lingered in the air, their spectral whispers carried on the wind. The burial ground was not just a place of death, but a testament to the forest's gruesome history. Stories of the forest's past began to unravel. Tales of ancient tribes who had once called the forest home, their lives cut short by a plague that swept through their village. Stories of lost settlers who wandered into the forest, never to be seen again. Tales of tragic ends and souls lost to the relentless grasp of the forest. Among the weathered tombstones and unearthed graves, the boys could almost hear the sorrowful laments of those who had fallen victim to the forest's curse. The air was heavy with a sense of mourning, the silence broken only by the rustling of leaves and the distant hoot of an owl. In the heart of the burial ground, a large, ominous stone stood. Carved on it were ancient symbols, a grim warning to any who dared to intrude upon the sacred ground. The scouts could feel the stone's ominous presence, its silent threat echoing through the stillness. And so, the chilling reality of their situation dawned upon them. They were not alone in the forest. Unseen entities watched their every move, waiting, biding their time. The forest was alive with the vengeful spirits of the past, awakened by the presence of the scouts. It was said that the spirits of those who had met tragic ends in the forest still lingered, seeking revenge on any intruders. The scouts were now caught in a deadly game of survival, trapped within the forest's haunting grasp. They found themselves ensnared by the spectral grip of the forest, their once cheerful laughter swallowed by the eerie silence. Each rustle of leaves, each whisper of the wind carried the foreboding message of their fate. They were not alone. The forest was alive and it was hungry. Unseen hands seemed to claw at their ankles, pulling them deeper into the heart of the woods. The air around them grew colder, as if the forest itself was draining them of their warmth, their life. The once familiar trees now loomed over them like ancient specters, their gnarled branches reaching out like twisted fingers ready to snatch away their innocence. Whispers echoed through the darkness, spectral voices that seemed to speak in a tongue long forgotten yet chillingly familiar. They whispered of ancient curses, of vengeful spirits bound to the forest by the chains of their tragic pasts. The boys could feel the eyes of these restless spirits on them, watching, waiting. Shadowy figures flitted at the edges of their vision, elusive and ethereal. They were formless, yet terrifyingly palpable. The boys could feel their presence, a cold, creeping dread that seemed to seep into their very bones. The apparitions danced in the moonlight, their spectral forms flickering like candle flames in the chilling breeze. The forest seemed to close in around them, the once distant trees now reaching out as if to trap them within their gnarled grasp. The boys could feel the pulse of the forest, the ancient heartbeat of a being that had slumbered for centuries, only to be awakened by their careless laughter. Every step they took, every breath they drew seemed to draw the ire of the forest, agitating the spirits that lurked within its depths. The forest was no longer their playground. It was a predator, and they were its prey. The forest had come alive with a vengeful energy that hungered for their souls. The boys were trapped, ensnared in a web spun from ancient curses and spectral vengeance. Their adventure had turned into a fight for survival, a desperate battle against a force as old as the forest itself. Desperation gripped the scouts as they struggled to escape the clutches of the malevolent force. Their hearts pounded in their chests, a relentless drumbeat echoing their fear. The once familiar forest had transformed into a labyrinth of terror, and each step they took seemed to only take them deeper into its haunted heart. The moon hung low in the sky, its cold light casting eerie shadows that danced between the gnarled trees. The boys could hear the whispers of the forest growing louder, a chorus of spectral voices that seemed to mock their futile attempts to escape. Each scout clung to the thread of hope, their young minds filled with images of home and safety. But the forest was relentless, its spectral inhabitants determined to keep them ensnared within its cursed borders. The boys could feel the icy fingers of fear creeping up their spines, their courage wavering under the weight of the supernatural onslaught. The leader, a beacon of resolve amidst the chaos, rallied his troops. He knew that their survival depended on their unity, their shared will to overcome the terror that stalked them. His voice, though strained with fear, echoed through the forest, a defiant challenge to the unseen tormentors. But the forest was unyielding, its ancient curse diffusing through the air like a poisonous mist. The boys could feel their strength waning, their spirits sinking into the depths of despair. The spectral voices grew louder, their sinister laughter echoing through the cold night air. The scouts pressed on, their footsteps heavy with dread. Each turn, each path they took seemed to lead them further into the forest's malevolent grasp. The trees towered over them, their twisted silhouettes a grim reminder of the supernatural force that bound them to this haunted place. Will they break free from the curse that binds the forest, or will they become lost souls, forever condemned to wander the shadows of the ancient woods? Their desperate escape continues, their fate hanging in the balance of this terrifying ordeal. In the heart of a remote forest, where the trees stood tall and ancient, a group of seasoned hunters embarked on a fateful expedition. These were not novices to the call of the wild, but experienced outdoorsmen who had weathered many a storm and tracked countless beasts. Their leader, a hardened tracker named Mark, led the way with a confident stride that belied the palpable tension in the air. As they ventured deeper into the forest, the world around them seemed to change. The verdant canopy overhead formed a dense tapestry that blocked out the sun, casting an eerie gloom that was felt more than seen. The once familiar sounds of nature were replaced with an unsettling silence, broken only by the whispering wind that rustled the leaves in a haunting melody. The trail they followed was a winding serpent, a path that had been trod by countless generations of animals and perhaps men. Mark kept them moving, his eyes fixed on the path ahead. He sensed something was different, something was off, but he couldn't quite put his finger on it. He felt the eyes of the forest upon them, watching, waiting. Meanwhile, the hunters, unaware of their leader's growing unease, were engrossed in their own thoughts. Their minds were filled with anticipation of the hunt, the thrill of the chase, the satisfaction of a successful expedition. Yet, even as they joked and laughed, an undercurrent of unease tainted their camaraderie. The deeper they traveled, the more pronounced this feeling became. The air grew thicker, heavier, as if they were wading through an invisible fog of dread. The forest around them seemed to close in, the trees looming like ancient guardians, their gnarled branches reaching out as if to warn them away. Unseen and unfelt by the hunters, a shadow of malevolence stretched out from the heart of the forest, a chilling presence that watched their every move with a predatory interest. Unbeknownst to them, they were entering the territory of a demonic spirit that had long been dormant, waiting for unsuspecting victims to cross its path. The hunters, led by the experienced tracker Mark, set up camp beneath a canopy of twisted branches. Each branch was a gnarled finger, reaching out from the darkness, trying to grasp the warmth of the fire. As they staked their tents and gathered firewood, the forest watched in silent anticipation, its secrets hidden deep within the shadows. Their campfire flickered like a beacon in the heart of the wilderness, casting an eerie glow on the faces of the hunters. The crackling of the fire was the only sound that dared to break the silence of the night. The flames danced wildly, casting long, grotesque shadows that played along the edges of the hunter's vision. It was a small comfort in the face of the unknown, a false sense of security against the encroaching darkness. As the night descended, they gathered around the warmth of the fire. The flickering light painted their faces with a primal, raw intensity. Each hunter, hardened by countless expeditions, held a unique story etched into their weathered features. Stories of courage, determination, and survival. Stories that echoed the spirit of the wild. As the fire crackled and popped, they began to share their tales. Each story was a testament to their skill and bravery, a celebration of their triumphs against nature's fiercest creatures. The air was filled with their laughter and camaraderie, a stark contrast against the silent, foreboding forest that surrounded them. Yet each story, each laugh, each shared memory was a call, an invitation to the ancient evil that lurked in the shadows. The demonic spirit stirred, drawn to the energy of the gathering. It was a force that hungered for the chaos and despair that lay beneath the surface of their bravado. It was a force that was awakened by their presence, their stories, their lives. They were oblivious to the sinister presence that watched them from the darkness. They were blind to the malevolent energy that began to seep into the very air around them. They were unaware of the ancient evil that had taken notice of them. Little did they know that their tales attracted the attention of the ancient demonic spirit, a force that hungered for chaos and despair. As the moon cast an ominous glow over the forest, The hunters heard rustling in the underbrush. Their hearts pounded in their chests, each beat a drum in the silent night. The rustling grew louder, a crescendo of fear that echoed through the ancient trees. Then, out of the shadows, a monstrous bear appeared, its eyes glowing with an unnatural crimson light. This was no ordinary bear. Its size was colossal, its fur as dark as the night itself, and its movements were eerily swift, almost ethereal. The bear's eyes, twin flames of red, held an intelligence and malevolence that sent chills down the hunter's spines. This creature was not of the natural world. It was a vessel for a demonic spirit that thrived on fear and chaos. The hunters, seasoned men of the wild, felt a terror they had never known before. Their hands shook as they raised their rifles, their sights trained on the beast. It was a tableau of man against nature, but nature had a terrifying advantage. The bear lunged, its roar cutting through the silence like a blade. It was a sound that would haunt the hunter's dreams for years to come, a sound that embodied pure, unadulterated terror. The air around the beast seemed to ripple with an unseen energy, a manifestation of the demonic spirit that controlled it. Bullets flew, their echoes reverberating through the forest, but the bear seemed impervious, its demonic aura deflecting the lethal projectiles. It moved with a supernatural agility, each swipe of its claw leaving a trail of destruction in its wake. The hunters were up against an enemy unlike any they'd ever faced. They fought, not for trophies or glory, but for survival. The bear was relentless, its pursuit fueled by the demonic spirit's insatiable hunger for chaos and despair. As the hunters retreated, the bear pursued them with relentless determination, its movements guided by an otherworldly force. They were no longer hunters, they were the hunted. The forest, once a place of beauty and solitude, had become a nightmarish battlefield, a testament to the terrifying power of the ancient demonic spirit. Mark, the tracker, realized the only hope of survival lay in a dilapidated shrine he had heard whispers of, an ancient place of power deep within the forest. The remaining hunters, their bodies bruised and hearts pounding, followed Mark's lead, their every step shadowed by the relentless pursuit of the possessed bear. The forest, once a symbol of nature's untamed beauty, now echoed with a primal terror. The twisting, gnarled trees seemed to reach out, their branches like skeletal fingers in the moonlight, guiding the hunters towards their only hope of salvation. The shrine, a relic of a forgotten era, stood amidst the dense foliage, its stone structure weathered by time and shrouded in moss. It was a testament to an age when mankind respected the forces of nature and feared the wrath of the spirits that inhabited the wild. Mark, his face etched with desperation, began the ritual. His voice trembled as he invoked ancient words, his hands shaking as he drew symbols in the dirt. Each word, each symbol, was a plea to the ancient forces that governed the forest, a desperate bid to banish the malevolent spirit that had taken control of the bear. The air around them grew heavy, as if the forest itself was holding its breath. The wind howled through the trees, carrying with it the echoes of Mark's incantations. The bear, its crimson eyes reflecting the flickering light of the fire, roared in fury, its massive form a terrifying silhouette in the darkness. Then the unthinkable happened. The bear paused, its menacing growl fading into a whimper. Its body convulsed, the ground beneath it trembling as an unseen force wrestled with the spirit within. The air crackled with raw energy, the atmosphere thick with tension and anticipation. And then, silence. The bear collapsed, its massive body crumpling to the ground. The forest seemed to sigh in relief, the wind carrying away the last remnants of the demonic spirit. In a burst of blinding light, the demonic spirit was expelled from the bear, leaving the creature lifeless on the forest floor. The hunters, battered and traumatized, emerged from the forest, forever changed by the horrors they had witnessed. Their faces were etched with the cruel lines of terror and defeat, a stark contrast to the confident smiles they had worn when they embarked on their ill-fated expedition. They had come to test their skills against the wild, but instead, they had come face to face with an ancient evil that defied their understanding of the world. As they trudged back to civilization, their weapons slung over their shoulders, they carried with them the heavy burden of their encounter. Every rustling leaf, every shadowy figure in the underbrush, sent shivers down their spines, a haunting echo of the monstrous bear that had pursued them with relentless determination. Back in the safety of their homes, the hunters found no solace. Sleep eluded them, their dreams invaded by the crimson eyes of the possessed bear. Each sound in the night, each flicker of a shadow, took them back to the heart of the forest where they had faced an unimaginable nightmare. Their stories of the expedition were met with disbelief and ridicule. The tale of a demonic spirit possessing a bear was too fantastical to be taken seriously. But the hunters knew the truth. They bore the scars of their battle, both physical and mental, a constant reminder of the ancient evil they had encountered. They were no longer the seasoned hunters they had once been. Their skills, their courage, their bravado had been tested and found wanting in the face of an adversary that defied the laws of nature. They had survived, yes, but at a cost that would forever mark their souls. The ancient evil had been banished, but the haunting memories of the possessed bear and the malevolent spirit would linger in the depths of the forest, a chilling reminder that some nightmares are better left undisturbed. The night was thick with darkness as I trudged through the dense, foreboding woods. My name, for those curious enough to wonder, is Sergeant Turner. I've been in the service for more years than I care to count, but nothing, absolutely nothing could have prepared me for the chilling experience that lay ahead. I'd been dispatched on a covert mission deep within the heart of a forbidden forest, a place where whispers of strange occurrences had been trickling down to the nearby villages. Even as I plunged deeper into the woods, I knew I was not alone. The moon, a spectral witness to my plight, hung ominously in the sky, its cold light casting eerie shadows that played hide and seek among the gnarled branches overhead. Our squad, a band of brothers, bound by duty and honor, had been scattered. Radios were silent. Communication, our lifeline, had been severed. The forest, once a place of natural beauty, had become a suffocating labyrinth of fear. The silence was deafening, punctuated only by the rustle of leaves and the distant, unsettling howls that seemed to be carried on the wind. Suddenly the air turned icy. An alien chill slithered up my spine, making the hairs on the back of my neck stand on end. Dread settled in the pit of my stomach like a stone. I was alone, separated from my comrades, stranded in a place where reality seemed to warp and twist into grotesque shapes. Panic clawed at my senses, urging me to move to escape the unseen eyes that watched from the shadows. Something was out there, watching, waiting. A shiver of anticipation swept through the forest, as if the very trees were holding their breath. I quickened my pace, my boots crunching on the fallen leaves beneath me. Each step echoed like a heartbeat in the silence, a reminder that I was alive. For now. The moonlight flickered, creating an unsettling strobe effect. My eyes darted around, trying to pierce through the darkness. Suddenly, a grotesque silhouette appeared, a shadowy figure that seemed to meld with the darkness. My heart pounded in my chest, a primal drumbeat echoing my growing fear. I fumbled for my rifle, the cold metal offering little comfort. I scanned the shadows, searching for any sign of movement. I could feel an unsettling presence. I was not alone. Something was out there, watching, waiting. Then, the air turned icy, and a chill crawled up my spine. The forest fell silent, save for the rustle of leaves underfoot. A guttural growl echoed through the stillness, a sound unlike anything I had ever heard. The beast was close. I turned, and there it was, a creature of nightmares, its fur matted with blood, eyes ablaze with a hunger that seemed out of this world. It stood on two legs, a monstrous fusion of man and wolf. It wasn't possible, but there was no denying it. A werewolf. My mind struggled to comprehend the sight before me. The creature was grotesque, its form twisted and unnatural. I could see the muscles rippling under its fur as it moved closer, its snarl sending shivers down my spine. I stumbled backward, my boots crunching on the fallen leaves. The werewolf's eyes locked onto mine, its gaze penetrating the darkness. It was a predator, and I was its prey. I could see the raw primal hunger in its eyes, a desire that sent a chill down my spine. Suddenly, it unleashed a blood-curdling howl, a sound so terrifying it seemed to freeze the very air around us. The howl echoed through the desolate woods, a chilling reminder of the creature's presence. I could feel its power, its dominance over the forest. This was its territory, and I was an unwelcome intruder. I could feel my heart pounding in my chest, my breath coming in ragged gasps. The reality of my situation was starting to sink in. I was alone, lost in a forest with a creature of nightmares. The werewolf's eyes locked onto mine, and it unleashed a blood-curdling howl that echoed through the desolate woods. I sprinted through the maze of trees, heart pounding, branches slashing at my face as I desperately sought refuge. The forest was a labyrinth of shadows and fear, each tree an ominous sentinel standing witness to my terror. The werewolf was relentless, its growls echoing through the night, each snarl a chilling reminder of the beast hot on my heels. The moon was my only guide, its silvery light casting long, haunting shadows. I darted between the trees, my breath coming in ragged gasps as I tried to put as much distance as I could between myself and the monster. But it was fast, faster than anything I'd ever encountered, and its blood-curdling howls were a constant reminder of the danger snapping at my heels. Suddenly the forest gave way to a clearing. Bathed in the ethereal glow of the moonlight was an ancient stone altar, its surface etched with symbols that spoke of a time long forgotten. A cold shiver ran down my spine as I realized the implications. This was no ordinary forest, and the werewolf was not its only secret. There was a darker presence here, something ancient and malevolent. A guttural growl behind me snapped me out of my thoughts. The werewolf had caught up, its eyes glowing like fiery embers in the darkness. I had no choice but to keep running. My heart pounded in my chest like a war drum, each beat a countdown to my potential end. The forest closed back around me, the trees once again forming a dizzying maze. I could hear the werewolf crashing through the underbrush behind me, its growls growing louder, more frantic. It was gaining on me, and I knew I had to make a decision. With my last burst of energy, I veered off the path and plunged into the thicket, the sharp branches cutting into my skin. The werewolf's snarls echoed behind me, but they were growing more distant. I had managed to confuse the beast, at least for now. The forest was once again silent, the only sound my ragged breathing and the pounding of my heart. I had survived the chase, but the night was far from over. The forest still held its secrets, and the werewolf was still out there, waiting. As for me, I was left with a terrifying reality. I was being hunted by something far more dangerous than I could ever have imagined. With my last burst of energy, I veered off the path and plunged into the thicket, hoping to throw off my pursuer. Hours passed, and I cautiously emerged from my hiding place, the forest now eerily silent. The cacophony of the night had been replaced by an unsettling quietude, a stark contrast to the terror that had unfolded just a few hours ago. My heart pounded in my chest, a silent drum echoing in the stillness as I ventured further into the heart of the woods. The moon shone brightly, casting long, ghostly shadows that seemed to reach out to me, whispering tales of nameless horrors. I could still feel the presence of the creature, its essence clinging to the air like a spectral residue, a haunting reminder of the nightmare I had survived. The forest bore the scars of the chase. Broken branches, trampled undergrowth, and a chilling sense of emptiness were all that remained. I could still hear the echoes of the creature's howls, a symphony of terror that played out in my mind, a chilling reminder of the thin line between life and death. As I trudged further, a sight met my eyes that froze my blood. There lay my squad, their bodies strewn across the forest floor, the final victims of the monstrous werewolf. Their lifeless eyes stared into the void, their faces frozen in their final moments of terror. The scene was a grim testament to the savagery of the creature, a poignant reminder of our futile struggle against the supernatural. The werewolf had vanished, its monstrous appetite sated by the lives of my comrades. The forest had reclaimed its silence, the only evidence of its resident terror being the bodies of my fallen brothers. The forest, once a symbol of nature's tranquility, was now a haunted graveyard, a chilling monument to the horrors that lurked within its depths. I stood there, amidst the silent trees and the bodies of my fallen comrades, a lone survivor in a forest of death. I had stared into the face of the supernatural and lived to tell the tale. But the memory of that night would forever be etched into my soul, a haunting reminder of the terror that had unfolded. The werewolf's hunger had been sated, leaving only a chilling reminder of the supernatural terror that lurked within the heart of those haunted woods. To this day, I am haunted by that night, tormented by the memory of the beast that stalked me in the darkness. The events that transpired in that dense, foreboding forest have left an indelible mark on my psyche, a terrifying reminder of the supernatural horrors that lurk beneath the veneer of reality. The beast was not simply a creature of nightmares, no, it was more than that. It was a grotesque fusion of man and wolf, a monstrous manifestation of the primal and the supernatural. The image of its bloodthirsty eyes, its matted fur damp with the scent of death, haunts my every waking moment, a chilling testament to the horrors that wait in the unfathomable depths of the dark. The aftermath was a chilling spectacle of death and despair. My comrades, once vibrant and full of life, were reduced to lifeless husks, their eyes staring into the abyss, their bodies a macabre testament to the beast's insatiable hunger. The sight of their faces, frozen in an eternal scream, is a vision that still lingers at the edge of my consciousness, a grim reminder of the price we paid that night. The experience has changed me, left me questioning the very nature of man and beast. Are we not all monsters lurking beneath a thin veneer of civilization? The beast was once a man consumed by the primal urge to survive, to hunt, to kill. Who's to say that under the right circumstances we would not all succumb to the same primal instincts? The forest holds secrets that the world may never know, secrets that challenge our understanding of the world and our place in it. It is a realm where the line between man and monster blurs, where the primal and the civilized collide with devastating consequences. It's in the quiet moments, in the dead of night, when the moon casts long shadows and the world is still, that I am left to wonder if the line between man and monster is far more fragile than we dare to imagine. Have you ever felt an inexplicable fear in the middle of nowhere? That's exactly what happened to my friend and I one winter in Idaho. Tucked away in the heart of Idaho's wilderness, nestled among the trees and the undisturbed quiet, stood a small cabin. It was a place of refuge, an escape from the bustling rhythm of city life, and an opportunity to become one with nature. The nearest town was a good 50 miles away, leaving only the whispers of the wind and the occasional rustle of wildlife to break the silence. The closest sign of civilization, an old logging road, lay abandoned, 2 miles off in the distance. In the embrace of this isolation, my friend and I, two urban dwellers in our 30s, sought refuge. We reveled in the solitude, the camaraderie, the disconnection from the rest of the world. The cabin, with its aged wooden walls and cozy bunks, became our playground. We spent our days exploring the wilderness and our nights huddled in the cabin, sharing stories and laughter under the soft glow of a lantern. As the sun dipped below the horizon, the darkness of the Idaho wilderness would creep in, slowly swallowing the cabin. The vibrant hues of the setting sun were replaced by the inky black of night, punctuated only by the twinkling stars peeking through the gaps in the treetops. The once lively cabin fell silent, the laughter and conversation of the day giving way to the soft sounds of the night. The tranquility of the wilderness, so serene during the day, took on a different tone in the darkness. The silence seemed to press in on the cabin, wrapping us in a blanket of unease. The isolation, once a welcome retreat, now felt heavy, a stark reminder of our distance from the rest of the world. As we prepared for bed, the silence was broken by a sound that sent chills down our spines. In the pitch-black night, the scraping sound against the cabin door was unmistakable. The night was so quiet, you could have heard a pin drop, but instead, it was this eerie sound that sliced through the silence, causing the hairs on the back of our necks to stand on edge. My friend and I exchanged worried glances, our hearts pounding in our chests like wild drums. We tried to laugh it off, tried to convince ourselves it was just an animal, maybe a raccoon or a squirrel. Or perhaps it was the wind playing tricks with the old wooden door. Yes, that had to be it, just the wind. But the sound persisted, slowly morphing from a scraping to a distinct knocking. It wasn't the random, aimless knocking of an animal or the rhythmic, continuous knocking of the wind. No, this was deliberate, calculated. Knock, pause, knock, pause, as if someone or something was trying to get our attention. Our laughter died in our throats, replaced by a rising tide of fear. The cabin suddenly felt too small, too isolated. The wilderness outside, once a playground for our adventures, now seemed like an unending expanse of darkness, hiding untold dangers. We lay there, huddled in our bunks, too scared to move, too scared to breathe. With each knock, the fear escalated, wrapping its cold, clammy fingers around our hearts. We whispered reassurances to each other, our voices barely audible. "It's just a prank," we said. "Maybe it's just a lost hiker," we reasoned. But deep down, we knew. We knew that it was neither a prank nor a hiker. We were alone in the wilderness, miles away from the nearest town, miles away from the nearest road. Who would be knocking at our door in the dead of the night? The knocking persisted, each thud echoing in the silent wilderness, filling us with a fear we had never known before. The night was no longer quiet. It was alive with the sound of our fear, a fear that was as real and as tangible as the knocking on our cabin door. The silence that followed the knocking was even more frightening. An eerie stillness had settled over the cabin. It was as if the entire wilderness, the rustling trees, the chirping crickets, even the wind itself had collectively held its breath, waiting for what might come next. We lay there, my friend and I, in our separate bunks, frozen by a terror so profound that it seemed to have seeped into our very bones. Our eyes were riveted on the cabin door, the only barrier between us and the unknown entity that lurked outside in the darkness. We didn't dare to move. We didn't dare to speak. Even our breaths were shallow, barely audible, as if we were afraid that the slightest sound might invite the unwelcome visitor to try the door again. Time seemed to have lost all meaning as we lay there in the oppressive darkness. Every minute felt like an hour, every hour like an eternity. The blackness of the cabin seemed to close in on us, pressing against our eyes, our skin, our lungs. It was a tangible thing, this darkness, heavy with the weight of our fear and anticipation. The night stretched on, an endless expanse of uncertainty. Our minds raced, conjuring up every possible explanation, every potential threat. Was it a wandering bear, curious about the light in the cabin? A lost hiker seeking shelter from the cold? Or was it something far more sinister, something that didn't belong in the natural world? With each passing moment, our terror grew. It was a living thing, a beast that fed on the silence, the darkness, the unknown. It gnawed at our sanity, eroding our rational thoughts, replacing them with images of shadows and monsters and nameless dread. As daylight broke, we finally mustered the courage to open the door and step outside. The world that greeted us was the same as it had been the day before, untouched by the horrors of the night. But we were changed, forever marked by the silent terror that had visited us in the darkness. As we stepped outside, the wilderness seemed to hold its breath. The morning was eerily calm, as if the world itself was trying to forget the terror of the previous night. The sun was just beginning to peek over the horizon, casting long, menacing shadows that danced in the early morning breeze. The untouched blanket of snow around the cabin glistened peacefully, a stark contrast to the fear that was still heavy in our hearts. We surveyed the area around the cabin, our breath misting in the frigid air. We were searching for any sign, any hint of our midnight visitor. But the snow was undisturbed. Not a single footprint marred its pristine surface. No tracks leading to the cabin, and none leading away. It was as if the world had swallowed up any trace of the intruder. We exchanged puzzled glances, our minds racing to make sense of the situation. The fear of the unknown had morphed into a deep-seated dread, a dread that was amplified by the silence of the wilderness around us, by the absence of any evidence, any explanation for what had transpired. The cabin stood there, silent and ominous, a stark reminder of the terror that had gripped us. We circled it, inspecting every inch, every nook and cranny, desperately looking for a logical explanation, but there was none. The door was untouched, the wood unmarred. The only testament to the previous night's horror was our own recollection, our own fear. We were left with an unsettling feeling, an unease that seemed to seep into our bones. The very air around us felt charged, the silence almost deafening. We were alone in this vast wilderness, sharing our terror with nothing but the wind and the trees. To this day, we have no explanation for the knocking that night. Who or what was knocking on our cabin door in the middle of the night, in the middle of nowhere? This question has lingered in our minds, echoing through the years, its resonance undiminished by time. We were two grown men in the prime of our lives, reduced to huddled, silent figures in the darkness by an unseen visitor. The cabin, our sanctuary nestled in the Idaho wilderness, had become a stage for a chilling, nocturnal drama. The fear was palpable, a third presence in the room, as tangible as the cold night air seeping through the cabin's cracks. The knocking, that insistent, relentless knocking, was the only communication from our uninvited guest. There were no voices, no demands, no explanations. Just the rhythmic, haunting knock that seemed to reverberate through the very marrow of our bones. The morning light revealed no clues. There were no footprints, no signs of disturbance, no indication of any human or animal presence. Just the silent cabin, standing stoic against the wilderness, its wooden door bearing mute testimony to the terror of the previous night. In the stark light of day, the fear receded, but the mystery remained. Who or what had been at our door? Was it a prankster, a lost traveler, a wild animal, or something more sinister? Could it have been a figment of our overactive imaginations, a shared hallucination born of isolation and darkness? Or was it a manifestation of the wilderness itself, an echo of the untamed, unpredictable force that surrounded us? These unanswered questions have haunted us, casting a long, eerie shadow over our memory of that night. The fear of the unknown, the dread of the unseen, has imprinted itself on our minds, transforming a simple, unexplained event into a chilling, unsolved mystery. We may never know the truth, but the memory of that night haunts us still, leaving us to wonder, what if the knocking starts again? Imagine this, a serene campsite, nestled in the depths of Northern California's wilderness, surrounded by the hushed whispers of nature. Our journey started in 2012, when I and a couple of buddies decided to camp out in the wilderness for 3 long months. An adventure, we thought. Little did we know, we were venturing into the unknown, the untouched, and the unforgiving. We were so far from civilization, you could almost hear the earth's heartbeat in the tranquil silence. The air was crisp, the sky a breathtaking canvas of twinkling stars, and our spirits high. Our only companions were the towering trees, the occasional critter, and our own echoing laughter as we set up camp a few miles outside of a tiny town. This town was as close to a ghost town as you could get. It boasted one long road, a gas station, a post office, and a bar. That was it. No bustling streets, no city lights, just an echo of life in the middle of nowhere. It was as though time itself had forgotten about this place, leaving it untouched and unspoiled. As the sun began to set, the shadows of the wilderness grew longer, and the town seemed to retreat further into the desolate landscape. The isolation of our location settled in, wrapping us in a blanket of eerie quietness. The silence was so profound, you could hear a pin drop. The world seemed to hold its breath, waiting, watching. We were alone, or so we thought, in the vast expanse of nature, with only our thoughts and the fading echoes of our laughter for company. As night fell, the wilderness transformed. The once friendly trees now stood as silent sentinels, their shadows dancing in the flickering firelight. The critters of the night began their nocturnal symphony, adding an eerie soundtrack to our secluded campsite. The tranquility of the day was replaced with an uneasy calm. The isolation we had initially reveled in now seemed to weigh heavily upon us. As darkness fell, an eerie silence hung in the air. It was the calm before the storm. In the dead of the night, the silence was shattered by a chilling sound. The serenity of our remote campsite, nestled a few miles outside of a tiny town, was punctured by a cacophony of screams. These weren't the usual noises of the wilderness, the hoot of an owl or the rustle of critters in the underbrush. These were human cries full of terror, full of pain. 3 distinct voices echoed through the darkness. They were distant, yet their panic resonated clearly, piercing the tranquility of our secluded spot like a jagged knife. We strained our ears, trying to make out the words, the pleas, anything that could tell us what was happening. But the distance played tricks on us, the words morphing into a jumbled mess as they traveled through the dense forest. The tension grew with each passing moment. The screams continued, relentless and frightening. We were frozen in our tents, hearts pounding against our ribs, the taste of fear metallic on our tongues. Each scream was like a specter, wrapping its cold fingers around our throats, squeezing tighter and tighter. Then, almost as if time had slowed down, we heard it, a single gunshot. A sound so stark, so final that it seemed to reverberate off the very trees surrounding us. It was a full stop to the night's symphony of terror. And then, nothing. The screams had vanished, swallowed by the darkness. The gunshot had snuffed them out, leaving behind an unnerving silence. The kind of silence that makes your skin crawl, that makes you wish for any sound, any noise to break the oppressive stillness. We were left in a vacuum of quiet, a void filled only with our escalating dread. I opened my tent, my eyes meeting those of my friends. Their faces mirrored my own, wide-eyed, pale, and etched with fear. We didn't need words. The silence spoke volumes. It was a shared understanding, a mutual recognition of the terror that had just unfolded. In the deafening silence that followed, we exchanged silent looks, a shared understanding of unspoken fear. In the aftermath of the gunshot, a heavy silence loomed over us. It felt as if the entire wilderness was holding its breath, the once chirping crickets now hushed. The gunshot echoed in our minds, a haunting reminder of the danger lurking in the dark. It was as if the bullet pierced through the thin veil of security we had woven around ourselves, leaving us exposed and vulnerable. Our hearts pounded in our chests, a deafening drumbeat against the eerie quiet. We exchanged anxious glances, our faces barely visible in the dim moonlight. No words were exchanged, but the fear in our eyes spoke volumes. The previous laughter and camaraderie of the campfire now seemed like a distant memory, replaced by an unsettling dread. We were miles away from civilization, nestled deep within the wilderness. The isolation, which had once felt liberating, now seemed suffocating. The realization that help was out of reach added a new layer of tension to the already charged atmosphere. We were utterly alone, our only companions the looming trees and the unseen creatures of the night. Sleep was a distant dream. Each rustle of the leaves, each snap of a twig sent a jolt of adrenaline coursing through our veins. We lay wide awake in our tents, our thoughts racing. What had happened? Who had fired that gunshot? And more importantly, were we in danger? The isolation of our location underscored the gravity of the situation. We were not just in the wilderness, we were in the wilderness of Northern California, a lawless land where a single sheriff patrolled 3 counties. This was not a place where you could rely on the comforting presence of law enforcement. Here, survival was the only law. As we laid there, each lost in our thoughts, the night seemed to stretch on endlessly. The darkness outside mirrored the fear within us, a constant reminder of the unknown dangers that lurked in the shadows. Our journey into the wilderness had taken a terrifying turn, and as the night wore on, the lingering question remained: what would the dawn bring? Come morning, we were confronted with the harsh reality of our surroundings. The pristine wilderness, which had seemed so inviting a day ago, now seemed fraught with hidden dangers. The law of the land, or perhaps the lack of it, was starkly apparent. We were in a territory where the rule of law was more a concept than a reality. This wasn't the urban jungle, where a call to 911 would summon help. This was the real wilderness, where survival was a matter of self-reliance. Here, a single sheriff was tasked with patrolling 3 vast counties, an impossible task that left vast swaths of the territory in a state of quasi-anarchy. You might have come across this kind of setting in popular culture. The TV show Sons of Anarchy, for instance, depicted a similar landscape, a place where the law was often in the pockets of the lawless. It was a dramatized version, yes, but it wasn't entirely removed from the truth. In these remote areas, the lines between right and wrong, legal and illegal, tended to blur. We were just kids, hitchhiking our way through the wilderness, equipped with nothing more than backpacks and tents. Our vulnerability was palpable. We had no resources, no backup. We were easy prey in a land where predators often went unchecked. We were outsiders, strangers in a strange land, far removed from the familiar comforts and securities of home. So we did what we could. We kept our heads down, minding our own business, hoping not to attract any unwanted attention. We knew that getting involved was not an option. That gunshot, the screams, they were a chilling reminder of how quickly things could go wrong, of how easily we could be next. In this wilderness, we were just passing strangers, easily forgotten. As we packed up our camp, the echoes of the night before hung heavily in the air. The silence of the wilderness was no longer comforting, taking on a sinister undertone instead. The unanswered questions weighed us down like stones in our backpacks. What had happened in that tiny ghost town? Who were those voices in the distance, their desperate cries still ringing in our ears? And the gunshot, a chilling punctuation to the cacophony of terror. It was not the wilderness we feared, but the unknown lurking within it. The eerie quiet that followed the gunshot was more terrifying than the noise itself. It was the silence of a story abruptly ended, or perhaps just beginning. We were left with our speculations, our minds painting horrifying pictures. Were we the only witnesses to a dreadful crime? Or were we just overhearing a local dispute that ended in a tragic accident? The possibilities were endless, and each one more unsettling than the last. Our imaginations ran wild, turning shadows into specters, and the rustling leaves into whispers of the night. Each snap of a twig, each hoot of an owl, took on a sinister significance. We were not just observers anymore, we were part of the story, the invisible characters in a tale of horror and mystery. And yet, despite the terror, there was an allure to the mystery. It was a dark puzzle, a riddle wrapped in the enigma of the wilderness. It was a story untold, a secret kept by the silent trees and the whispering wind. We never found out what happened that night. We never knew who those voices belonged to or what fate befell them. The wilderness kept its secrets, as it always does. We were left with the haunting echoes, the lingering fear, and the unanswered questions. As we disappeared down the trail, we left behind a question. What had happened in that tiny ghost town? I guess we'll never know. Deep in the heart of an ancient forest, Park Ranger Sarah received a distress call, who had spent years patrolling these woods. She had guided countless lost hikers back to safety, and had become one with the forest's mysterious rhythm. But tonight, the rhythm was off. The distress call came in on a cold, moonless night. A hiker was lost, their voice trembling through the crackling radio, pleading for help. Sarah, ever the professional, quickly suited up, her uniform a beacon of reassurance in the face of uncertainty. She grabbed her trusty flashlight, its beam a solitary eye in the all-consuming darkness, and set off, guided by the hiker's shaky coordinates and her own intimate knowledge of the forest's labyrinthine trails. As she ventured deeper into the woods, the towering trees above formed a dense canopy, blotting out the few stars that dared to twinkle on this ominous night. The forest floor was eerily silent, the usual nocturnal symphony of wildlife hushed to a whisper. Her flashlight sliced through the blackness, casting long, monstrous shadows that danced and contorted on the gnarled tree trunks and the tangled underbrush. Something was not right. The coordinates led her on a path she knew well, but tonight it felt different, alien. A chilling sensation crawled up her spine, a feeling of being watched, of being followed. She shook off the feeling, attributing it to the nerves. But the sensation only intensified as she moved further into the belly of the forest. Finally, the coordinates led her to a small clearing. But the hiker was nowhere to be found. Her flashlight revealed an empty space, surrounded by towering trees that seemed to leer at her. The radio, once filled with the hiker's desperate pleas, now spat out nothing but static. The forest seemed to have swallowed the hiker, leaving only Sarah and her growing sense of dread. Guided only by her knowledge of the forest's twisting trails, she ventured deeper into the inky darkness. And so, Sarah pressed on, the echoes of the distress call resonating in her mind, the unsettling silence of the forest her only companion. As Sarah ventured deeper into the woods, the dense canopy above blocked out any trace of starlight. The forest was shrouded in an abyss of darkness, a blackness so deep it seemed to swallow the beam of her flashlight. The silence was deafening, the usual chorus of nocturnal creatures replaced by an unsettling stillness, a hush that prickled the back of her neck. It was as if the forest was holding its breath, waiting for something. The towering trees stood like silent sentinels, their gnarled branches casting long, spectral shadows. Every rustle of leaves, every snap of a twig under her boots seemed magnified, echoing in the hollow silence. The cool wind carried a strange chill, whispering tales of forgotten horrors and ancient curses. Guided by the coordinates from the hiker's phone, Sarah pressed on, her heart pounding a staccato rhythm in her chest. Something wasn't right. The silence wasn't just eerie, it was wrong, unnatural. The forest was never this quiet. It was as if the woods were aware of her presence, watching her every step, every breath. The feeling of being observed was relentless. It bore down on her like a heavy fog, making her skin crawl. Her flashlight beam danced over the rough bark of the trees, the underbrush, the moss-covered rocks, but revealed nothing out of the ordinary. But still, the feeling persisted. Something was out there in the dark, unseen, but very much present. Finally, she reached the coordinates, but the hiker was nowhere to be found. The flashlight beam swept across the area, revealing an empty clearing. The distress call had stopped, replaced by static on her radio. The chilling silence was all-consuming, as if the forest had swallowed the lost hiker, leaving no trace behind. The feeling of being watched intensified, prickling her skin like 1,000 icy needles. Her breath hitched in her throat, her heartbeat thundering in her ears. The unsettling silence was all around her, pressing in, and Sarah was left with an ominous feeling that she was not alone. Her flashlight illuminated an empty clearing surrounded by tall trees and encircled by the oppressive blackness of the forest. A sense of foreboding filled the air, as if the very trees themselves were holding their breath. Sarah called out into the darkness, her voice breaking the silence like a stone shattering a glassy pond. But there was no answer. Only the echo of her voice returned to her, bouncing off the trunks of the ancient trees and dissipating into the chilly night air. She tried to retrace her steps, to find the path that had led her to this desolate clearing. But it was as if the forest had swallowed it whole, erasing all trace of her passage. The familiar trail she had traversed for years had transformed into a labyrinth of shadows and deceit. Sarah's heart pounded in her chest as the silence of the woods was replaced by the thunderous beat of her own fear. She felt a chill run down her spine, not from the cold, but from a feeling of dread that was creeping up on her, wrapping its icy fingers around her heart. Suddenly, her flashlight began to flicker. She tapped on it, hoping to coax it back to life, but it only responded with a sputter of weak light. The shadows around her seemed to grow darker, more menacing. They danced and twisted, creating grotesque figures that seemed to loom over her. Sarah's mind raced as she tried to find her bearings, but every direction looked the same, every tree a mirror image of the one before. The oppressive darkness seemed to press in on her from all sides, as if the forest itself was closing in on her, eager to swallow her whole. The flashlight gave one final flicker before dying completely, plunging Sarah into complete darkness. She was alone, lost in an ocean of shadows, with no way to navigate the treacherous terrain. As she stood there, enveloped by the unrelenting darkness, Sarah could not shake off a feeling of utter despair. The forest, once a place of beauty and tranquility, had transformed into a nightmarish maze. The forest itself seemed to conspire against her, the trees shifting and twisting to create an ever-changing maze. The shadows danced with glee, reveling in her fear, as Sarah was left to face the horrors of the forest alone. As she pressed on, Sarah began to hear strange whispers, disembodied voices that filled the air with eerie secrets. They were soft at first, like the rustling of leaves or the murmuring of a distant stream. But as she strained her ears, she realized that these were not sounds of nature. They were whispers, human whispers, yet they were devoid of any comfort or familiarity. The whispers seemed to come from all around her, a chorus of ghostly voices that seemed to echo from every tree, every shadow, every gust of wind. The words were indistinguishable, yet they filled her with a sense of unease that she could not shake off. Each whisper, each syllable seemed to wrap around her like an icy shroud, chilling her to the bone. Sarah quickened her pace, her heart pounding in her chest. The whispers grew louder, their tone more insistent, more urgent. They seemed to be warning her, guiding her, leading her deeper into the heart of the forest. Yet she could not understand their message. She could only feel their cold, spectral presence, their ethereal voices echoing in her ears. The forest seemed to respond to the whispers, becoming more menacing, more foreboding. The trees seemed to loom larger, their gnarled branches reaching out like skeletal hands. The underbrush seemed to thicken, creating a labyrinth of shadows that swallowed the faint beam of her flashlight. The air grew colder, the silence deeper, the darkness more absolute. Sarah could feel the presence grow closer. It was as if the forest had come alive, its every tree, every leaf, every stone pulsating with an energy that was both terrifying and mesmerizing. She could feel it behind her, beside her, above her, its icy breath caressing her neck, its unseen eyes watching her every step. The whispers grew louder, more insistent, their words still incomprehensible, yet undeniably menacing. Sarah could feel her resolve weakening, her fear growing, her hope fading. Yet she pressed on, driven by a primal instinct to survive, to escape the sinister grasp of the forest. The unseen presence grew closer, its icy breath caressing her neck. In the dim light of her failing flashlight, Sarah spotted a figure ahead. It was human-shaped, standing motionless amidst the gnarled trees. A glimmer of relief washed over her. She had found him, the lost hiker. The distressing ordeal was nearing its end, or so she thought. Drawing a deep breath, she stepped forward, her voice echoing through the silent woods. "Are you okay? We need to get out of here." She was met with silence, the figure remaining as still as the trees around it. A chill ran down her spine, the relief she had felt moments ago replaced by a creeping sense of dread. As the figure slowly turned around, the weak beam of her flashlight fell upon it, revealing a sight that made her blood run cold. It wasn't the hiker. The face that met her gaze was twisted in a silent scream of anguish, eyes hollow, devoid of any spark of life. The skin hung loosely, sagging like that of a lifeless corpse. Terror gripped Sarah as she took a step back, her heart pounding wildly in her chest. The figure stood motionless, its hollow eyes staring back at her, a silent specter in the heart of the forest. With a blood-curdling scream, the figure lunged at her. Sarah, trapped in a nightmare that had sprung to life, turned on her heels and sprinted into the labyrinth of the dark forest, the chilling echo of the scream still resonating in her ears. The forest, once a sanctuary of solitude, had turned into a hostile terrain. Every rustle of leaves began to sound like the footfall of the grotesque creatures. Every gust of wind carried with it a whisper of terror. The once familiar shadows now harbored lurking threats, and the pitch-black darkness seemed to close in around her like a suffocating shroud. Sarah's heart pounded with primal fear and adrenaline. She could feel the creatures closing in, their grotesque forms barely visible in the weak beam of her dying flashlight. Their chilling cries echoed through the trees, a terrifying symphony of the night. The forest, it seemed, had turned against her, becoming a living, breathing entity of malevolence. Driven by sheer desperation, Sarah pushed herself to the limits. Her breath came in ragged gasps. Her legs ached with exhaustion, but she knew she couldn't stop. Not when the faintest hint of safety was just within reach. Just when she began to lose hope, a faint glow pierced the darkness. It was a beacon of hope cutting through the terror, the warm, welcoming light of the park's headquarters. Summoning every ounce of strength, Sarah sprinted towards the light. Her breaths came in ragged gasps, the chill of the night air burning her lungs. She could hear the twisted figures close behind her, their unearthly cries echoing through the trees. The light of the park's headquarters grew brighter, a beacon of hope in the heart of the dark forest. As she neared the headquarters, the creatures' cries became more desperate, their pursuit more relentless. The forest seemed to close in around her, the trees bending and twisting as if trying to bar her way. But Sarah refused to yield. She pushed forward, her fear giving way to determination. Just when she thought she couldn't run any further, the trees gave way to a clearing. The headquarters stood before her, a sanctuary in the midst of the nightmarish forest. The creatures' cries grew louder, a cacophony of rage and frustration, but the safety of the light held them at bay, their twisted forms flickering and fading at the edge of the clearing. With one final surge of adrenaline, Sarah crossed the threshold into the light. The creatures' cries died down, replaced by an eerie silence. Sarah turned and watched as the grotesque figures retreated, their faces contorted in fury. They disappeared into the shadows, their chilling cries echoing one last time before the forest fell silent. Panting heavily, Sarah leaned against the door of the headquarters, relief washing over her. The adrenaline that had fueled her escape slowly drained away, leaving her exhausted but alive. She had escaped the clutches of the nightmarish creatures, but the experience had left its mark. She was safe, but the forest had revealed its hidden terrors. Sarah knew that the woods would forever remain a place of darkness and mystery, its secrets echoing in the chilling cries of the creatures that lurked in its depths. The forest had shown her its true face, a face that would haunt her for the rest of her days. Sarah was safe, but forever marked by the horrors of that night. Her mind, once filled with the tranquil serenity of the forest, was now tainted with the chilling memories of grotesque figures emerging from the shadows. Every rustling leaf, every snapping twig, every whisper of the wind brought back the terror of that fateful night. Sarah's life was irrevocably altered. She was haunted by nightmares, the twisted faces of those creatures forever imprinted in her mind. Sleep became a luxury she could seldom afford, for every time she closed her eyes, the forest came alive with its nightmarish inhabitants. Her days were no better. The forest, once her sanctuary, became a source of dread. Every tree, every path, every corner seemed to hide a lurking horror. The forest, once vibrant and alive, was now a canvas painted with the colors of her fear. Sarah's love for the forest was replaced with a bone-chilling fear. The sounds that once soothed her, the rustling of leaves, the chirping of birds, the whispering wind, were now a symphony of horror that echoed the terrifying screams of the nightmarish figures. The forest was no longer a place of peace, but a living nightmare. A place where the line between reality and horror was blurred. A place where the unimaginable became real and the unthinkable became a haunting memory. Sarah was a changed woman. The fearless park ranger, was now a prisoner of her own memories. The forest, once her home, was now a haunting reminder of the night she'd never forget. The night when the forest revealed its true nature. A malevolent entity that held secrets that defied explanation. Secrets that went far beyond what her rational mind could comprehend. The forest, once a source of peace, was now a chilling reminder of the night she'd never forget. Imagine a forest, quiet and still, where darkness seems to breathe and the moonlight barely filters through the thick canopy of trees. This is no ordinary forest. It's a place that whispers tales of dread and fear, where even the bravest hearts dare not tread as the sun sets and twilight creeps in. There's an uncanny stillness that befalls this forest, a silence so profound that it seems to echo the unspeakable horrors that once stained its soil. The rustle of leaves underfoot is a harsh intrusion, a crack in the silence that sends the nocturnal creatures skittering away. Their soft scurries a testament to the unsettling quietude. As the night deepens, the forest's eerie beauty becomes a haunting tableau. Shadows dance upon the gnarled trunks, twisting and contorting with the capricious breeze that carries whispers of a tale older than the forest itself. It's a chilling folklore, one that resides in hushed voices and wary glances of the locals, a story they dare not utter after sundown. The tale speaks of a witch, a malevolent spirit who has claimed this forest as her domain. Her presence is as old as the forest, a chilling reminder of a past that refuses to be forgotten. The wind carries her laughter, a sound so cold it freezes the marrow. The moonlight reveals her path, a trail of shadows that leads to the heart of the forest, the epicenter of her malevolent reign. The locals tell of her visage, a silhouette against the moon, a specter that haunts their dreams and feeds their fear. They say she is the forest, her essence woven into the very roots and branches that make up this dark, mysterious place. To enter her domain is to invite her wrath, a fate no one wishes to tempt. In the heart of this forest, there's a tale that chills the blood of even the bravest souls. Deep within the forest, darkness takes on a form of an old witch, they say, her eyes glowing with an unnatural light. Her name, lost in the annals of time, but her legend, that lives on, whispered in hushed tones and shuddered breaths. The Witch of the Forest, a creature of the night, a specter of fear. She's not just an apparition, she's a chilling reality that lurks within the veil of shadows. A daunting silhouette draped in tattered rags, her body bent and twisted like the gnarled trees she calls home. They say her eyes, glowing like molten silver, can pierce through the blackest night. Her laughter, a chilling symphony, echoes through the forest, bouncing off the trees and reaching the ears of the unsuspecting. It's a sound that freezes the blood in your veins, a sound that heralds doom. She doesn't walk, she glides over the mossy forest floor, an ethereal figure floating on a ghostly breeze. Her presence is not announced by the rustling of leaves or the snapping of twigs. No, she's there one moment, gone the next, leaving behind only the chilling echo of her laughter and a cold gust of wind. Her charm is her weapon, her smile a trap. She lures the unsuspecting with a deceptive sweetness, a mirage of safety in the dangerous wilds. But it's all a cruel game, a deadly farce. For once you're entranced, once you're within her grasp, she reveals her true, terrifying nature. Your fate sealed with a chilling laugh and a flash of those glowing eyes. She's a nightmare, a legend, a terror that haunts the forest at night. A chilling reminder of the darkness that lurks, of the evil that exists in the world. An embodiment of all that is feared and all that is unknown. Those who have seen her have never returned to tell their tale. Each night, the witch awakens, and the forest comes alive with her malicious intent. As the moon takes its reign over the darkened sky, a chilling transformation occurs. The tranquility of the forest is replaced by an atmosphere laden with dread, a sense of impending doom that seizes every creature, every leaf, every gust of wind. The witch, a specter of malevolence, weaves her dark magic under the cloak of night. Strange lights flicker between the trees, casting eerie shadows that dance in the moonlight. These are not the comforting lights of fireflies or stars reflected on a still pond. No, these lights are harbingers of doom, the witch's ethereal minions, illuminating her path of destruction. The silence of the night is broken by haunting sounds, a symphony of whispers and cries that echo through the darkness. They are the witch's voice, a melody of terror that reverberates with every rustle of leaves and every creak of the ancient trees. Her laughter, a cold, rasping sound, slices through the air, chilling the bones of all who hear it. She moves with an ominous swiftness, a blur in the moonlit forest. Her presence, though unseen, is felt by every creature. Fear seizes them, a primal instinct to hide from the predator. Even the bravest of beasts cower at her approach, their roars reduced to whimpers. Her reign of terror is not just a spectacle of fear, but a testament to her power. She is the undisputed queen of the night. Her rule absolute in the darkness. Every night her reign is renewed, her terror fresh, her power unchallenged. As dawn approaches, the forest falls silent once again. The lights fade, the sounds cease, and the witch retreats into the shadows. But the terror she leaves behind lingers, a grim reminder of her reign. The forest, once a sanctuary of peace, now bears the silent testament to the witch's reign of terror. On the outskirts of the forest, a village lives in the shadow of this terror. The residents of this quaint little settlement are bound by an inescapable dread, the kind that seeps into every crack of their lives, turning each day into a countdown to darkness. Every villager has heard the echo of the witch's laughter carried on the wind, chilling their bones. It's a sound they dread, one that brings with it the promise of a night filled with terror. Fear has become a constant companion, a silent stalker that lurks in the shadows of their thoughts, always reminding them of the danger that lurks just beyond the tree line. In a desperate bid to keep the witch at bay, the villagers have adopted a set of rituals and precautions. Every home is adorned with talismans, each one painstakingly crafted with the hope of warding off the witch's evil. Doors and windows are firmly bolted as the sun dips below the horizon, and the village transforms into a ghost town, its streets deserted as families huddle together in their homes, praying for the dawn. The witch has become an integral part of their lives, her existence woven into the very fabric of their reality. Children are lulled to sleep with whispered tales of the witch, stories that serve as both a cautionary tale and a grim reminder of the omnipresent threat. The adults, too, exchange hushed stories of their encounters, each one more terrifying than the last, fueling the fear that grips the village. But for all their precautions, all their rituals, the villagers are caught in a cycle of despair. They live in a state of constant vigilance, their lives dictated by the setting of the sun and the rise of the moon. Every day is a struggle, every night a battle for survival. The village, once a place of joy and laughter, has been transformed into a place of fear and desperation. The witch's reign of terror has cast a dark shadow over their lives, a shadow they can't escape. Every sunset brings with it a night of horror that the villagers can only wait out, hoping to see the dawn. And so the forest remains a place of dread, a place where fear hangs heavy in the air. As the moonlight pierces through the dense canopy, it illuminates the terror that has been etched into the very soul of this place. It's as if the trees themselves whisper tales of the horrors they've witnessed. The forest, once a vibrant sanctuary of life, now stands as a chilling testament to the witch's reign of terror. A reign that has siphoned the joy out of the village nearby, leaving behind a hollow echo of what life used to be. Her presence, though unseen, is felt in every rustling leaf and in every gust of wind that howls through the skeletal branches above. She, the witch of the forest, has become the night herself. She thrives in the darkness, her laughter echoing through the silent night, a haunting melody that lingers long after the dawn breaks. Her malevolence, like a shroud, envelops the forest and the village, casting a long, dark shadow over the hearts of those who dare to live within her reach. The villagers, once a jovial and thriving community, now live in the throes of a perpetual nightmare. Their lives, once filled with the simple joys of existence, are now consumed by fear. Their laughter replaced with hushed whispers and their smiles with wary glances. Their days are filled with dread of the coming night, and their nights are sleepless, filled with the haunting echoes of the witch's laughter. Each day the sun rises, casting away the darkness, but the shadow of the witch lingers, a constant reminder of the endless cycle of horror. The villagers wake to the same fear, the same dread, the witch's reign unchallenged, her laughter a chilling lullaby that haunts their dreams. Until the day the witch's laughter no longer echoes in the forest, the nightmare continues, an endless tale of horror in the heart of the forest. In the quaint town of Crestwood, there's a shop that piques the curiosity of locals and visitors alike, the Betsphere. A curiosity shop tucked away in a corner of this sleepy town, it's a place shrouded in mystery and whispers of the supernatural. Its owner, a man known simply as Mr. Thorne, is as enigmatic as the shop itself. Rumor has it that he can predict the future, and that his shop houses a crystal ball that holds the power to reveal glimpses of destiny. As intriguing as these rumors are, they're just that, rumors. Stories spun by the townsfolk, fueled by the peculiar aura of the shop and the cryptic demeanor of its proprietor. As a skeptical journalist named Emily, I found myself drawn to the Betsphere, not out of belief in these fantastical stories, but out of curiosity. The curiosity to know the truth, to debunk the myths, and to put an end to the whispers. The shop, with its dimly lit interiors and shelves lined with oddities, seemed like a place straight out of a fantasy novel. The crystal ball sitting in the center of the room cast an ethereal glow that added to the shop's mystique. When I first met Mr. Thorne, his tall, stoic figure and piercing eyes were more intriguing than intimidating. He welcomed me with a low, melodic hum. "Welcome, seeker. What brings you to the Betsphere?" I told him about my intentions to investigate the rumors about his shop and his supposed ability to predict the future. Unfazed by my skepticism, Mr. Thorne gestured towards the crystal ball. "The answers you seek lie within. Allow the sphere to guide you." And so, my journey to uncover the truth behind the Betsphere began. A journey that would lead me down a path of mystery, intrigue, and revelations beyond my wildest imagination. As a skeptical journalist, I was determined to uncover the truth behind the whispers. The door creaked open, a soft chime announcing my arrival. The Betsphere, a curiosity shop that was more a realm of the arcane than a commercial establishment, lay before me. Its dimly lit interior breathed age-old mysteries, the air heavy with the scent of antiquity. Strange artifacts filled the shelves, from tarot cards to potion bottles, and old tomes inscribed with cryptic symbols. Yet, the centerpiece was the crystal ball, radiating an ethereal light that seemed to pulsate with the rhythm of hidden secrets. From the shadows, a figure materialized. Mr. Thorne, the proprietor of this mystical shop, was a towering figure. His piercing eyes bore into me, the intensity of his gaze almost palpable. His voice, a low, melodic hum, resonated in the hushed silence. "Welcome, seeker. What brings you to the Betsphere?" I met his gaze squarely, my skepticism apparent in my reply. I was here to unravel the truth behind the rumors, to debunk the superstitions surrounding his so-called gift. Yet, as I voiced this, Mr. Thorne was unfazed. His eyes twinkled with an unspoken challenge as he gestured toward the crystal ball. "The answers you seek lie within. Allow the sphere to guide you." With a sense of trepidation, I approached the crystal ball. As I peered into its depths, images began to form, flickering like an old film reel. Scenes from my past, my present, and a yet uncertain future unfolded before me. The accuracy of these visions sent a chill down my spine, and I felt a strange pull, a magnetic force that drew me deeper into the enigma of the Betsphere. The crystal ball, once just a prop in a curiosity shop, was now a looking glass into the realm of destiny. My skepticism crumbled, replaced by a sense of awe and wonder. I was no longer just a journalist on an assignment. I was a seeker on the path of the mystic, drawn into the captivating world of the Betsphere. Doubt gave way to awe, and I found myself drawn into the mystique of the Betsphere. Days turned into weeks as I immersed myself in the mysteries of the Betsphere. The crystal ball, once a mere curiosity, had now become an obsession. Its shimmering glow, the ethereal visions it conjured, each held me in a thrall I found increasingly difficult to resist. As I delved deeper, the townsfolk too seemed to be drawn into the sphere's irresistible pull. They lined up outside the shop, faces etched with hope and apprehension. The Betsphere had become an integral part of Crestwood, a source of solace, a beacon guiding the lost souls towards a semblance of certainty in the maelstrom of life. Yet, as the town prospered under the sphere's influence, I began to hear whispers of unease. Rumors circulated of strange happenings, of fortunes that seemed too precise, too perfectly tailored to the seeker. The sphere's allure began to take on a sinister undertone. The townsfolk spoke in hushed tones of deals made and prices paid for the sphere's guidance. A farmer, whose crops flourished after a visit to the sphere, lost his beloved dog under mysterious circumstances. A young woman, who found love after seeking the sphere's advice, was inexplicably shunned by her friends. Every fortune, every prediction seemed to come with a hidden cost, a price paid not in gold or silver, but in happiness and peace. The sphere, once a symbol of hope, began to cast a long, ominous shadow over Crestwood. As I pieced together these eerie tales, I couldn't help but feel a chill creep up my spine. Was there a darker side to the sphere's power? Was it merely revealing the future? Or was it somehow influencing it? The more I questioned, the more I doubted the sphere's benign intentions. Yet despite my growing apprehensions, I found myself drawn to the sphere, compelled to uncover its secrets. The allure of the unknown, the thrill of the chase, it was intoxicating. However, with every step I took, the whispers grew louder. Some claimed that the fortunes foretold came at a cost too steep to bear. In my quest for truth, I uncovered a dark secret. The crystal ball at the heart of the Bet sphere held a power far greater than mere prediction. It was a manipulator of destiny, a puppeteer pulling the strings of fate. As I delved deeper into the mysteries of the sphere, I noticed patterns. The futures it prophesied didn't just come to pass. They seemed to be set in motion by the very act of their revelation. People's actions, influenced by what they saw in the crystal ball, were subtly nudged onto a new path, a path that led invariably to the fulfillment of the prophecy. It was a chilling realization. The sphere was not a window into the future. It was a mirror reflecting back the consequences of our choices. And in its reflection, we were unknowingly sculpting our own destinies. I sought out Mr. Thorne, my mind a whirlwind of questions and accusations. I confronted him with my findings, expecting denial or deflection. But instead, I was met with a calm acceptance that was somehow more unsettling. "Indeed," he said, his voice echoing in the hushed stillness of the shop. "The Bet sphere does not predict the future. It reveals the potential outcomes of the choices we make." I stood there, stunned. The sphere wasn't a fortune teller. It was a guide, a compass pointing towards the possible repercussions of our decisions. It was a tool, and like any tool, it could be used for good or ill. "But remember," Mr. Thorne continued, his gaze intense and unwavering, "the sphere does not dictate destiny, it offers a choice. Each person who gazes into it must decide whether to heed its guidance or forge their own path." In that moment, I understood. The sphere, the shop, Mr. Thorne, they were not the arbiters of fate. They were the reminders of our own power, the power to shape our destiny through the choices we make. And with that power comes the responsibility to choose wisely. The Bet sphere does not dictate destiny, it offers a choice. The words echoed in my mind as I left the shop, the weight of their truth heavy in my heart. The Bet sphere, I realized, was both a gift and a curse. A paradoxical entity that held the power to illuminate the path ahead, yet also possessed the potential to lead those who sought its guidance astray. It was a potent reminder of the delicate balance that existed between our destiny and the choices we make. As I reflected on my experiences with the Bet sphere, I found myself contemplating the intricate dance of fate and free will. Each vision the sphere offered was not a fixed point in time, but a possible outcome influenced by the decisions we make. It served as a mirror, reflecting not only what could be, but also the choices that could lead us there. But the sphere was more than just a silent observer in our lives. It had a voice, a subtle whisper that nudged us towards certain choices, altering the course of our destiny. It did not dictate our fate, but gently influenced it, a reminder that even the smallest of decisions could ripple through the tapestry of our existence, changing its pattern in unforeseen ways. Leaving Crestwood behind, I carried with me the lessons I learned from my encounter with the sphere. It was a humbling experience, one that taught me to respect the power of choice and to question the nature of destiny. I learned that while the sphere could offer guidance, it was ultimately up to us to navigate the winding paths of our lives. As I journeyed on, I couldn't help but wonder about the fate of Crestwood. Would they continue to seek guidance from the Bet sphere, or would they, like me, learn to appreciate the beauty of uncertainty and the power of choice? Only time would tell. The Bet sphere, with its mystic allure, remained a silent witness to the intricate dance of choices in the grand tapestry of existence. A testament to the delicate balance between fate and free will, it continued to shine, a beacon of hope and a reminder of the power of choice. And so, our tale of the Campfire Horrors comes to an end. Until next time, sleep tight. Before we part ways, dear viewers, remember to stay vigilant. The campfire horrors may have been extinguished for now, but the embers of the unknown always remain. As you lay down to sleep tonight, don't forget the lessons from our tale. Safety is but a fleeting moment in a world of unseen. So if you've enjoyed this journey into the abyss, don't forget to ring that bell and smash that like button. Do it before the thing under your bed decides to pay you a visit. Oh, and keep those night lights on. You never know what might be lurking in the dark. Thank you for embarking on this terrifying adventure with us, until our paths cross again in another tale of the unknown. Goodbye and sweet dreams, if you can.